and welcome to my presentation on the Wairau Incident. I'll be covering this through Clash of Clans because I feel like the vast amount of characters that I can use as each, say, individual from the story will help me a lot. So let's begin by going back to where it all began. This is 1824, Kapiti Island. The Ngāti Toa decided that they would like to expand their sphere of, say, influence after migrating from Kapiti, along with their allies, to the South Island, in mainly the Wairau Plains. So this is now the Wairau Plains, where they've just established where they are after taking on 3 tribes from this area with muskets and tribes that had muskets. They took them down one by one until they had full influence over this entire area, as you can see, which is now just ruled by them. So they began to trade with the Pākehā and whalers, which they really cared about and they protected for. So, say this gold mine here, that is Pākehā, and they're giving them resources. Collect that, I get some resources. That was the Ngāti Toa with the Ngāti Toa trading with the Pākehā. And, well, the settlers of this area living in these army camps, basically, just somewhere off in these forests, but that's just land in that time. They saw the Ngāti Toa as like a huge brute force. You know, they had these guys, their leaders. You got Te Rongo here, you have basically everyone there. They were just a massive force. But then that all changed. 1839, then came the New Zealand Company, who had claimed to have bought all of this land, which in the South Island, mainly in Nelson, so they began to settle there. But there were all these claims that weren't really backed up, which would what started this major, well, not really major, but start this conflict between the Ngāti Toa and the New Zealand Company, basically the Crown itself. And so the New Zealand Company, they had began to survey like the Ngāti Toa area. You know, they had their little surveyors in this camp here, and they began to build a shelter. So they would have their shelters here, whereas the Ngāti Toa would be over here. They'd be examining the area. But then once the Ngāti Toa saw them there, they opposed, saying that they didn't have that land. It wasn't theirs. They didn't buy it. And so this is back to the Ngāti Toa. Once they realized that the New Zealand Company were already surveying their area, they wanted to talk to Arthur and Nelson. So basically they were like, Arthur, yo, why are they in our land, G? This is our land. They don't have any claims for it. And, well, Arthur, he saw that they had a good point, but his brother told him to keep surveying the area, which had then enraged, I guess, say, the Ngāti Toa. And so then came the little bit of conflict they had. You have the barbarian king here, which is Te Rauparaha, and then you have your Grand Warden, which is Te Rangahaieta. Basically, they decided to shut down or destroy, say, villages that they had, the little shelters they made, but making sure to protect like the valuables. It was only to try and scare them away. And then, well, the Indian surveyors, they didn't really destroy them like this, but they just were outraged with it. And so basically, there was just this bit of, this is back to the New Zealand Company, who had an inexperienced, I guess, military, say, I will just train up a bunch of barbarians. which in this case will be the New Zealand Company soldiers. Okay, so you have your army of New Zealand Company that don't know what they're doing. Like they're inexperienced and they wanted to take on the tribe. This is the stream here. That's the stream. And you have all of these New Zealand Company just waiting there. They're waiting here, and Te Paraha, he sees him, and when he sees him, a whole tribe, like double as many of the New Zealand Company armed soldiers, come there. The Ngāti Toa, they come there and meet him, and then there's just like this standoff. But then disaster happens as they attack. They either accidentally shoot or maybe it was on purpose. And then this whole warfare breaks out where they basically get destroyed. Yeah, so they get destroyed and they decide to retreat. 9 of them were killed, but Te Rongo, she was killed. She was killed in, like, say, the crossfire as they were battling. And this had sparked rage in Te Rauparaha's eyes and Te Rangahaeta's eyes. And as the New Zealand Company tried to retreat, they were chased down and killed or captured as prisoner. And the ones that were captured as prisoner who were put over here, they were executed, also killed, but because they were given the order to be killed by Te Rangahaeta and Te Rauparaha for, say, Utu of Te Rongo, who's dead. Like, she's not here, she's just dead. And that's just the end of that warfare there. The New Zealand Company had to surrender. That all happened on June the 17th of 1943, where 49 Pākehā had attacked unsuccessfully on the Ngāti Toa. And while 4 of the Ngāti Toa, they were killed, as you saw there. And while Te Rongo was killed in the crossfire, which had sparked rage, and as the Indian Company had retreated back to base, they were outraged as their prisoners were killed. And they went to the High Leader, the Crown, the Governor of Nelson, and they were like, "Hey, yo, boss, our guys died, gee. Kill the Ngāti Toa, man." And, well, he didn't see it from their perspective, as he saw that the Ngāti Toa were provoked. He's just chilling down here in Nelson, having fun. And then he hears about this, and he knows that the Ngāti Toa, he is the high leader in here. He knows that the Ngāti Toa were provoked because the New Zealand Company just stormed there without actual rights or anything proof that they had the land. And the governor had shared his view to the Crown, which later backed him up. And by the end of June 17th, the battle was over. And basically, that wasn't the end of it though, because the outcome of this, the Ngāti Toa, they had moved to the North Island. They had came back. Okay, this is the Ngāti Toa. They decided to go back to the North Island to help their allies who were currently in battle with the Pākehā up there as well. And, well, the New Zealand Company the New Zealand Company so from 1843 to 1847, the settlers of Nelson over here, they were shocked of Robert Fitzroy's decision to let the Ngāti Toa go because they were provoked and they were against the innocent party. And since the Crown had backed him up and in the end the Ngāti Toa were unharmed, the New Zealand company were outraged and, they wanted him to get replaced. And around 1845, he was just burnt by the settlers. They were like, nah, you're dead now. You let them get away, we're going to kill you. So they killed him, which is very sad. The outcome of this in 1846 and 1847, there were two more land battles which happened in Porirua, so over here, and Whanganui down here, 1846 and 1847. And the reason behind these land wars, I believe, is well not just the incompetence of the, say, Crown, which is Pākehā, but the second article of the treaty, which had allowed them to say, to just rule the land. There was, say, a misunderstanding of the second article in the treaty because, well, they didn't really, it was rushed. The treaty was rushed. It wasn't properly translated for the Māori. So the Māori thought this, and the English thought this. It was all a major misunderstanding that would lead to more and more wars. But for the Wairau incident, the Crown had kept their sovereignty by allowing the Māori to, say, keep their land, and later on they continued to trade with the Māori while also buying more land from them. The ways the Māori had kept their, say, mana or their respect was just standing up for their land, not letting these guys provoke them. They held their ground, they stood firm, and they didn't do anything wrong. But in conclusion, the English settlers and surveyors, they had thought that they had more power over the Māori because of the treaty, and they could go to their land and just survey it without any claims that it was their land. The Māori had disagreed and thought that they had no right to do so, and they didn't really. And the second article of the treaty had caused this whole misunderstanding. It led to this misunderstanding and had led to the deaths of 13 English people and 4 or more Māori who had stood for their land. Thank you for tuning into my presentation. I'm sorry it's not that good. I'm very sick, and it's